Welcome back to Down Under Cruising and Travel. I'm Tony. Unfortunately, Selena can't be here at the moment, but we're going to touch on something today on what documentation is required if you want to do a cruise out of Australia. Okay, so you want to go from a cruise that leaves from an Australian port. Let's break it down a little bit and try and keep it simple. Passports. We'll start with Australian citizens and Australian residents. If you're Australian or of other nationality that has a residential status in Australia, then it means that you're able to cruise from any Australian port to any other Australian port without having to have a valid passport. For adults, any government ID such as a driver's license or your Medicare card is ample to be able to get you on board. And kids under 18, they can travel domestically by using their Medicare card. Unfortunately, I have checked on the details, and student IDs with their age identity on them, they don't pass. So it has to be a Medicare card. Okay, now what is domestic? Domestic is basically categorised as any Australian port to another Australian port. As case to say, like some of the sampler cruises, you go from Brisbane on a 3-night cruise. It just Brisbane goes out on a comedy cruise for 3 nights and comes back into Brisbane. That is a domestic cruise. Going up to the Barrier Reef is a domestic cruise because you don't actually go out of Australian waters. Now, there is one exception to this, and it's a little bit of a grey area. Okay, Willis Island is a domestic designation. Now, Willis Island is 450 kilometres east of Cairns. Some cruise lines do a very slow cruise past it so that they can open the duty-free shops and the casino. Now, Willis Island is located in the Barrier Reef in the Coral Sea, and the Australian Bureau of Meteorology has a weather station on it, and it's manned by 4 staff. Basically, they just do a slow cruise past. They contact them to see if there's any medical emergencies, whether they need any excellent medical supplies or food supplies, or there's any problems. It's just a courtesy call, really. They don't actually land there, so therefore it is not actually an international destination. So some of the cruises that go to Ely Beach and Townsville, places like that, they'll go out to Willis Island as another destination, but it's not an actual stop. So therefore, it's a domestic cruise. Just checking my notes here. International. Now, if you're going to any destination outside of Australia, then you must have a valid passport with a minimum of 6 months still remaining on it at the time of arrival back into Australia. You may be lucky and get away with it if you're just a couple of days short, but I personally would not like to risk it. I have heard of people that have been stopped from getting on their cruises because they don't have enough time left on their passport. I do know that international flights, if you don't have these 6 months left on it, in some other countries, they will not let you board. That's just something to be aware of. Singapore, if you're going to Singapore 3 days out from getting there, you have to do a pre-arrival check thing. But that's pretty much only going to affect if you're flying in there. Vaccinations. Now, currently, you still have to have either a negative PCR test 72 hours beforehand or a RAT test within the first 24 hours before you board. Now, your RAT test can be self-administered, and all you have to do is, just checking my notes here, take a photograph of the negative RAT test displayed next to a government-issued photo ID, such as your driver's license or a passport. It must have your photograph on it. A newspaper with a date shown as well, and a clock showing the time the test was completed. Then there's a little bit of discrepancy at the moment between the cruise lines, where you have to actually upload them sometimes onto their website, sometimes onto the app that you will use to access your cruise details. Just check with the individual cruise line as to which way they are now preferring to have it done. Always check what is required with the country or countries that you are going to as well. Some, like Singapore, require you to do a negative PCR test 3 days before you arrive. Now the cruise lines will accommodate you with that, and they will give you the test to do. Although it's more applicable to flights at this time. If vaccinated, you must show your current vaccination status. Now, another thing to watch is travel insurance. Okay, travel insurance. In an ideal world, everyone would automatically just purchase it without even thinking about it for both domestic and international. But sadly, it's not the case, and many do get caught out, especially with disastrous results. What many don't realise is that the minute you step aboard a cruise ship, you're under the jurisdiction of whatever country the ship is flagged under, whether it's Panama, Bermuda, Italy, Malta, or Netherlands. Same goes for medical services. Just because you are cruising in Australia doesn't mean you are covered by Medicare or private health insurance. And if something happens and you need treatment, then you have a problem. A lot of people will dispute what I'm saying here and say, oh, well, we're inside the 12-mile limit, so we're covered by Medicare in Australia. Unfortunately, no, that is not the case. Now, I will read something here that I have managed to find and download, and I will include it in the description below so that you can actually download it yourself and read it. It is from cruise and travel lawyer Victoria Roy of Victory Travel and Cruise Lawyers, who explains, with so many cruise-deprived Australians ready to use their future cruise credit since cruising has returned, I want to put an end to the misconception that you are covered by Medicare on domestic cruises. You are not. Once your ship sets sail, you are not covered by Medicare or your private health fund if you need medical treatment, even if you're only sailing between Australian ports. Assuming that you are covered by Medicare on a domestic cruise is an expensive mistake to make. If you suffer an injury or illness on a cruise, medical treatment on board is generally far more expensive than on land. A visit to the ship's doctor for a routine consultation, for example, for seasickness, or even a checkup after kicking your toe and splitting the nail, that can cost you a few $100s. While most cruise ships have very impressive medical facilities, if you need emergency specialist treatment, or if you have a serious injury where you have to medically evacuate it off the ship to the nearest hospital, emergency medical airlift will cost you tens of thousands of dollars US. And if you're not covered, then you have a really big problem. As I say, I'll put the full details of this in the inspection down below. Now, if you like the sort of information that we're bringing you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll keep on bringing them to you. If you don't do that, we don't know we're doing the right thing. So many thanks. Anyway, let's carry on. Okay, now, when looking for insurance cover on these COVID-related times, always check that your cruise insurance covers you for the cancellation of your cruise in the case of COVID, in which case you can claim back 100% of the cruise if the cruise line will not allow you a future cruise credit. Now, you have to physically ask for this because it is not written in a casual, normal cruise contract for insurance cover. Some companies have it in the fine print that COVID is not covered. Therefore, if you come down with it on board, you're responsible for all of the costs. Note, if you are also travelling to the South Pacific on a cruise from Australia and any of your ports of call are in New Caledonia region, e.g. Noumea, Lefou, Isle of Pine, Murray, then you must provide the proof of the international travel insurance for both cruise and COVID cover, or you will not be allowed to board the ship here in Australia. It's just a stipulation that has come from the New Caledonian government. It's not the cruise line's fault. This is what New Caledonia requires. So please make sure that when you get your COVID or your travel insurance, you stipulate that you ask for international travel insurance. It must cover COVID for cancellation, and specifically has the word cruise written in it. A lot of travel insurance does not cover cruise when you really read through the fine print. That's just a hidden trap that no one ever tells you about. So search around and ask questions as to the level and the cost of insurance. That depends on you and how you answer the application questions. I won't go into recommending a specific insurance cover. There's too many out there. You have insurance companies, you have travel agencies that are offering it, you've got banks that are now offering it. There are airlines that are offering it. The cruise lines occasionally mention somewhere that you can get it. Just hunt around, and as I say, it will come down to you as the individual. I can apply for a cruise to the South Pacific Islands, and I give them my details, my health details, my age, everything that they want for the multitude of questions that they ask. Now, you can go to the same cruise as I am, give them your details, your age, your health details, and everything, and they will come back with two totally different prices. What their reasoning of it is, I have no idea, but generally there is a big discrepancy for absolutely no reason. So hunt around. Always get second requests and third requests for pricing. Anyway, I'll leave it there now. So happy cruising, everybody. I hope this just gives you a little bit of help. Always remember, you don't need a passport if you're cruising in Australia. You do if you're cruising out of Australia to the likes of the Pacific Islands, Singapore, or New Zealand. If you're going to cruise and you need a passport, make sure you have the minimum of 6 months before you arrive back in Australia. Check your COVID documentation is all up to date. And please, please, please get travel insurance. It could be one of those things. It's as simple as putting your foot down, rolling your ankle, twisting or breaking your ankle for that much, just by walking down the stairs. And you have a huge medical bill if you are not covered for international travel insurance. Anyway, bye for now, and we'll see you on the next cruise.